Part 18. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 171. Mr. Li, I don't know what you mean. Yuri pretended to be confused. But his heart sank. He didn't know how Mr. Li Qing in front of him knew that he was an arms dealer. He had to deny it first and get away with it. Mr. Yuri, it's no fun. I just had lunch with Mr. Dimich. Li Qing looked at Yuri's stubbornness and pointed it out directly. Only then did Yuri remember that he seemed to see Dimich get off the car just now. It seems that Dimich is working with the person in front of him. Yuri lowered his head and thought about it. Although the second-level middleman didn't make much money, he could at least handle this order to solve the urgent problem. Okay, I admit that I am an arms dealer, an American arms dealer. Yuri spread his hands and said with a smile. He emphasized the American arms dealer to make Li Qing have some concerns. After all, it is not a wise thing to offend an American arms dealer. Okay, Mr. Yuri, the American arms dealer, Li Qing said with a teasing smile. If Li Qing is really annoyed, the United States? Even the Martian arms dealers are useless. Then he said, I hope this is a good start. Both sides win-win. This Yuri just solves the problem of arms channels, and Li Qing doesn't mind sharing some of the profits with him. Well, Li, we can talk about the content of the cooperation. The reason for being so eager is that he has a competitor, another American arms dealer, Simeon Weiss. This person is a traditional arms dealer who has been selling arms for the CIA during the Cold War. This time he also came to Ukraine to look for business opportunities. If he completes the order in advance, he will suffer heavy losses. Fortunately, he met this Mr. Li Qing. The two took a car to the farm, and the two sides completed the content of the cooperation on the farm. It was very simple, nothing more than quantity, price, and profit-sharing ratio. Of course, the contract must be signed. After all, if the other party breaks the contract, it is not wrong for Li Qing to kill people directly. Mr. Yuri, happy cooperation. Such a large-scale transnational arms deal was negotiated. By the way, let's have dinner together tonight. We have a special program. Li Qing said mysteriously. When Yuri heard this, his eyes lit up. He hadn't tasted the taste of his hometown for a long time. Whether it was food or women. Now you have a good rest, Li Qing said and walked out of the room arranged for Yuri. As soon as Li Qing went out, Tian Yangsheng stood at the door waiting to report to Li Qing. Brother, the base opposite is in a tavern in a town 20 miles away from here. There are about 20 core personnel. Tonight is the day for their gathering. Li Qing nodded after listening to the report. I will arrange for you to train those people tonight. Let me see their quality. He wanted to see how these mercenaries trained by Tian Yangsheng were and whether they could be used. Hearing this, Tian Yangsheng nodded and immediately went down to prepare. In fact, Li Qing had already planned to deal with the so-called skinheads before leaving. These people dared to attack him in public because of a small matter. It seems that it is also a scourge in the local area, so let's take it as a way to get rid of it for the people. After dinner, Li Qing took Yuri in the car and rushed to a town 20 miles away. Sitting on the muddy road, Yuri was a little surprised that it was not the road to Odessa. Hey, Li, are you taking me to taste something new? Don't forget that this is my hometown. I am more familiar with it than you. Only Odessa has the best. Here there are only potatoes and peasant women in the countryside. Yuri joked. In his impression, this was the road to a small town. And the town only had dirty taverns and waitresses with thick waists and big butts. Don't worry, Yuri, I'll treat you to a show. Li Qing smiled playfully. He used a killing to shock this daring arms dealer. Yuri also felt something was wrong. He looked back and didn't know when a few grass-green military vehicles followed behind. These military vehicles were given to Li Qing as gifts by Dimish. But Yuri was smart, he didn't ask any more questions, just sat quietly. The car soon arrived at the town, the streets were empty, only the dim street lights were flashing. In this cold night, beggars also know to find a warm place to hide. Bang bang. A sound of opening and closing the car door sounded. Yuri also got out of the car, and he could see the people in the car behind him. They were all bandits wearing black masks and holding axe, about 20 to 30 people. Yuri swallowed his saliva, he had guessed what Li Qing was going to do. Li Qing nodded with satisfaction when he saw these young boys. Yang Shen, go. Tian Yang Shen nodded, and led the group of bandits directly, quietly moving towards the tavern not far away. Li Qing took Crow, Zhang Dongziu, and Yuri, and walked slowly behind. Seeing Tian Yangsheng stretched out his hand and made a few tactical moves, a three-person team immediately walked out and slowly came to the door of the tavern. One person stepped forward to listen to the noise inside and nodded. The other two people took out the smoke bombs and pulled out the pull rings. When the finger reached 3, the first person kicked the door open and threw 2 smoke bombs in at the same time. The gangsters behind had already put on protective masks and rushed in directly in a team of 3. The sound of AK gunfire rang out, and screams continued in the house. The sound of gunfire and screams intertwined, turning the small tavern into a living hell. It was not until a few minutes later that the smoke slowly dissipated. Li Qing led his men and slowly walked into the tavern. The boys were calmly reloading their guns on the bald heads one by one. The ground in the tavern was covered with blood, like a slaughterhouse. The sticky blood flowed under his feet, making Yuri pale, feeling a wave of palpitations, and his stomach kept churning. It reminded him of the dead bodies on the immigration road when he was a child. Brother, the backbones are all here, and none of them escaped. Tian Yangsheng stepped forward to report. Li Qing nodded and walked around the tavern. Not bad, killing people is clean and neat. Tian Yangsheng must have put a lot of effort in training them. Not bad, you are good, clean up the battlefield. Yes. One by one, they began to move the bodies neatly. Crow saw a familiar figure. You're wasting natural resources, you just kill such a beautiful girl. You can make a lot of money by leaving her to Dahua. Zhang Dongziu pulled his lips. Damn, when I killed the Javanese illegal immigrants, I didn't see you say it was a waste of natural resources. Get lost. Javanese are monkeys, not people. At this time, Yuri, who had vomited, stood up and looked at the cold-blooded people carefully, especially Li Qing. He felt a little scared. Don't worry, Mr. Yuri, although we are cruel to our enemies, we are very gentle to our friends. Of course, only valuable people can be called friends. Li Qing smoked a cigarette and looked at Yuri with a smile. He believed that he should be able to temporarily intimidate the arms dealer. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 172. Yuri, I believe our cooperation will be pleasant, right? Li Qing extended his hand enthusiastically. Yuri's eyes were full of fear, and he smiled stiffly. Of course, my friend. The violent gangsters wearing black masks dealt with the corpses in an orderly manner. They gathered the corpses together and sprinkled them with gasoline. The pungent smell of gasoline made everyone frown. Li Qing was the first to say, let's go. They will take care of it. Several people walked out of the tavern, got in the car and started walking back. Yuri looked at the raging fire rising behind him, feeling a little scared, especially the eyes of those murderous violent bandits with a disregard for life. He had only seen it on soldiers during the war. He originally wanted to be greedy, but he had already given up on this idea. He felt that if he secretly took money from the man next to him, he might be killed. Li Qing seemed to see Yuri's worry and said to him with a smile, don't be afraid, Yuri, you deserve your share. Integrity is the basis for our continued cooperation. Li Qing deliberately arranged the scene to scare the monkeys, just to make Yuri worry, otherwise his ambition would really make him greedy for some money. Oh, Li, I'm not a profiteer, please don't worry. When Li Qing heard this, he smiled and nodded. He didn't believe a word of Yuri's words. There was silence in the car until Yuri arrived at the farm and stepped out of the car and let out a sigh of relief. He said hello to Li Qing and went back to his room to rest. Li Qing looked at Yuri's back, the corners of his mouth curled up. The phone vibrated in his pocket. He picked it up and saw that it was He-min. I haven't seen this little girl for several months, and I miss her a little. Xiaomin? You're still up so late, Li Qing buried himself on the sofa and whispered. Opposite him, He-min had just finished taking a shower and was lying on the bed in a bathrobe. Brother Qing, the gambling boat has been built. Do you want to come and take a look? There was a little joy in his tone. In fact, she hadn't seen Li Qing for quite some time, so she was worried about it. From Li Qing to Wanwan province, she has been busy fighting for territory, and the number of visits to Hejiang has decreased a lot, which makes her feel less secure. This time she made up her mind to use the boat gambling as an excuse to occupy Li Qing for a while. Li Qing was stunned when he heard this. It was more than a month earlier than expected. It seemed that Xiaomin was very concerned about this matter. Originally, he planned to fly to South Korea tomorrow. After all, Mao Xianmin hadn't been there for a long time, so this time he could loosen it up for her. He-min called and said that the gambling boat was built, so he had to go to Hejiang to take a look first. Hey, the man is really tired. Well, okay, Xiaomin, I will fly directly from Ukraine to Hejiang tomorrow, Li Qing chuckled. Just hearing He-min's tone, he knew what this little girl meant, and Li Qing also decided to leave as soon as possible tomorrow instead of late. As for the follow-up arms arrangements, he was relieved that Tian Yangshen was here in Ukraine. Especially the group of tough bandits he trained, whose abilities have exceeded those of ordinary soldiers, and who are also very skilled in tactical coordination. They can be regarded as an important force under Li Qing's command. Dongziu, book a ticket to Hejiang tomorrow. Let's go take a look when the gambling boat is built, Li Qing told Zhang Dongziu. Zhang Dongziu immediately responded and went down to make arrangements. When the crow heard about the boat gambling, his eyes also shone. He has no interest in gambling, but there are many young ladies on the gambling boat, so he mainly goes to the boat to, well, look at the young ladies. Zhang Dongziu came back after booking the tickets. When he saw Crow's lewd smile, he knew what he was thinking. Why are you laughing? I think you need to save some money. Zhang Dongziu's words made Crow stunned for a moment. Saving money? Why? How can I have tea with the young lady if I don't save money? I don't drink tea anyway. Zhang Dongziu raised his head, then looked at the crow with contempt, and continued, you don't want to have sex for free, do you? The ladies on the gambling boat are different from the street fast food. The crow became angry with shame. How can you use the heart of a villain to judge the belly of a gentleman? How can you accuse someone of innocence out of thin air? His little thoughts were clearly seen by Zhang Dongziu. Huh? Can you speak idioms? The next day, Li Xin said goodbye to Yuri. Yuri will stay in Ukraine for a while, and he will not feel at ease until the weapons are on board. After Li Qing asked Tian Yangshen to entertain Yuri, he took Wu Wu and Zhang Dongziu into the airport. After flying for most of the day, we finally arrived at Hejiang International Airport. Outside the airport, He-min had already been looking forward to it. He kept walking back and forth in front of the Rolls-Royce, and looked in the direction of the airport entrance from time to time. The moment Li Qing finally appeared, she ran away. Li Qing looked at He-min flying towards him like a bird, and smiled happily. He stretched out his arms and hugged He-min and spun around twice. Crow was pulling his luggage behind him, looking at his boss with envy. I don't know when a woman would give me a hug immediately. Zhang Dongzhi glanced at the crow and shook his arms, which were thicker than ordinary people's thighs. If a woman doesn't have it, what can a man do? Roll. Hey, why are you like this? I pity you. I have a lawyer. Li Qing had no time to pay attention to the two jokers. He was talking sweetly to He Min. The two of them were tired of each other for a long time, and Wu Yao and Zhang Dongzhi almost choked to death from the full amount of dog food. Crow, Dongzhi, long time no see. He Min smiled and handed each of them a watch, a gold Rolex. Hello, sister-in-law. The two quickly greeted each other. The group started walking towards the Rolls-Royce. Crow looked at the little sister-in-law in front of her, and whispered to Zhang Dongzhi, I like the little sister-in-law like this, so unpretentious. Zhang Dongzhi rolled his eyes. If he hadn't seen the crow constantly rubbing the gold watch on his wrist, he would have believed it. When Crow talked about the gifts, she got excited. Every sister-in-law behaves differently. Sister-in-law Hong Kong often makes us soup, sister-in-law Xiaomin often gives us simple gifts, and sister-in-law Xianmin gave us a platinum card from the Star Club. I just want to say that there are more sisters-in-law like this. Zhang Dongzhi curled his lips and thought to himself, maid, since you shamelessly became the boss's bodyguard, I was the only one favored, but now it is split into two, and I get angry just thinking about it. He couldn't help but deliberately tilted his foot and stepped on the crow's foot. Sorry, didn't mean it. Zhang Dongzhi, I feel cold inside and my body is swollen. Crow dropped his luggage, jumped on his feet and wailed. Finally home. Li Qing dropped his luggage and loosened his tie. He Min knelt down and changed his slippers. Mama Su, bring me the tremella fungus and lotus seed soup. Knowing that Li Qing was coming back today, she specially asked the cook to make tremella and lotus seed soup. She knew that Li Qing loved soup. Li Qing patted the side and said, stop working and sit down and talk to me. We haven't seen each other for several months. Although we talk to each other on the phone for a long time, some things can't be explained clearly on the phone. He Min sat generously next to Li Qing, leaning on his chest, chatting about his work and life in the past few months. By the way, Brother Cheng. The gambling boat needs someone to take charge. Can't the Big Bell, Fruit Tree, Xiaobao, and the others be restrained? Li Qing asked with a frown. No, it's about Jianshu. No one can take charge. If there is a powerful crook, I'm afraid. He Min said softly. That's a problem, Li Qing nodded and murmured softly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 173. Actually. He Min bit her lower lip. She didn't know whether she should say this. Li Qing saw the hesitation on He Min's face, chuckled and stroked her hair. How? Otherwise, I'll go and beg my dad. He's very familiar with Singaporean gambling tycoon Tan Kim Seng. He Min didn't say anything further because her mouth had been kissed fiercely by Li Qing. Li Qing didn't move his mouth until he felt that the woman in his arms was having difficulty breathing. No need, the boat will be straight when it reaches the bridge. This thing troubles me. Isn't it because I am looked down upon by my cheap father-in-law? Li Qing rubbed the cherry with his big hand, raised his eyebrows and smiled. He Min looked at Sue's mother in the kitchen carefully and patted Li Qing's mischievous hand. Don't make trouble, there is someone here. But the slight gasp and the emotional blush on her face betrayed her. Li Qing smiled, picked up the shy He Min and walked to the bedroom upstairs. He came to the bedroom and placed her gently on the bed. Little goblin, here I come. For a time, the high mountains and flowing water met a close friend, and the flowing water also circled the high mountains. As a result, she was mainly anti-customer, and Miss He-min kept grinding. By the time both of them had enjoyed themselves, it was already late at night. Li Qing looked at He-min, who was sleeping soundly next to him, smoked a cigarette from the side, lit it and took a deep breath. It seems that this cheap father-in-law is a bit unwilling. Through He-min's report, Li Qing discovered some clues. First, many Jianshu masters have come to the casino recently, which has reduced his profits. Second, he completed the gambling boat, but he couldn't hire a gambling expert. Ao had already told Li Qing that He-min actually invited gambling kings from Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and other places, but they all refused. This has to make Li Qing suspicious. There is no one else with this ability except his father-in-law. Li Qing crushed the cigarette butt fiercely. He originally wanted him to retire peacefully, but if he was so disrespectful, don't blame himself for being ruthless. The next day, early morning. The refreshed Li Qing had just finished taking a shower when he saw He-min downstairs busy making breakfast in the kitchen. "Xiaomin, just make some. By the way, where is Mother Su?" Li Qing wiped his hair and asked curiously. He-min smiled and placed the bowls and chopsticks in his hands. "I asked Ma Su to go home and rest for a few days. After all, my man is back and it's not convenient," He-min said angrily. Her screams echoed throughout the villa yesterday, even the deaf could hear them. In order to avoid embarrassment, He-min directly gave Su's mother a long vacation. "You little clever guy." Li Qing smiled and nodded. The two of them finished their breakfast in a timid manner. After the two of them finished eating, they went out. Ao, Gongzi, Beizu, and others had been waiting for a long time. "Brother." Ao came to Li Qing with a smile and said respectfully. "Brother. Brother." The person behind him also shouted. "Long time no see, Ao." Li Qing patted Ao's shoulder. "We have all heard about your stay in Taiwan. It's really monkey si lay." Ao and others looked at Li Qing with reverence. In less than half a year, a gang from other provinces that had no foothold in Beibei was able to take root. This is not just awesome. I heard from Crow that he even beat up a place called Manga alive. This was not something that only powerful force could do. Li Qing glanced at Wu Wu and Zhang Dongxiu, who were hiding behind, and knew that these two people were talkative. Seeing his eldest brother looking over, Crow scratched his head and laughed, "It's not me." But he didn't know that Zhang Dongxiu had secretly pointed at the crow when his elder brother looked over. Ao and others also looked at the crow speechlessly. Crow also immediately felt something wrong. When he turned around, he happened to see Zhang Dongxiu's finger. "I'm really impressed, Zhang Dongxiu, you idiot. Okay, let's go and see our gambling boat." Li Xin interrupted Crow's angry voice. A group of people drove towards the dock in a car. At the dock, Li Qing got out of the car first and looked at the white gambling boat in the distance with curiosity in his eyes. Owning your own gambling boat for the first time is an amazing feeling. After boarding the gambling boat, He-min kept introducing Li Qing to the side. The ship is 150 meters long, 20 meters wide, and has a displacement of 10,000 tons. It is divided into 8 floors and can carry more than 300 tourists and more than 100 crew members. The gambling ship has complete facilities, including casino, guest rooms, restaurants, cinemas, karaoke, game rooms, saunas, swimming pools, bowling, conference rooms, etc. "Where is the registration of this first ship?" Li Qing nodded after listening to He-min's introduction and asked. He-min glanced at Li Qing angrily, knowing that Li Qing was testing her. "Panama." At this time, Li Qing stepped forward, hugged He-min and kissed him. He was a woman who was really impeccable in doing things. "By the way, this ship doesn't have a name. How about you give it a name?" In fact, He-min kept it on purpose and waited for Li Qing to come back and name it. When Li Qing heard the name, he scratched his head. He was named Useless because he thought he had given his gang a new world and was secretly called old-fashioned by many people. Do you have any good suggestions? Li Qing raised his eyes and looked at everyone. Everyone looked at each other and lowered their heads to think. The boss asked, and they had to think hard to come up with a majestic name. Brother, I think it should be called Tiger Crow. Look, there are you and me in it, it's very majestic. Crow didn't think about it and blurted it out. Li Qing looked at Crow and rolled his eyes. He was tired and didn't bother to pay attention to him. Dynasty. Sea Casino. Oriental. New World. Li Qing patted his head and thought, what are these names? Forget it, I'll just come up with it myself. Stop, call it Century. Li Qing also had a meaning for this name. First, the turn of the century is approaching, and second, he hopes that this gambling ship can exist until the next century. Of course, this is just a good wish. Everyone else breathed a sigh of relief. None of them were stupid. Who would dare to come up with a good name? If it's done, will it be yours or Big Brother's? The group visited the big ship with great interest, and Li Qing was very satisfied with the gambling ship. Tell Dehu and Er go to get some good stuff to serve on the ship next time. Li Qing ordered. Zhang Dongzhou nodded and took out a small notebook to write it down. The crow next to him curled his lips. Flatterer, can you write Chinese? It was only a little after 10 o'clock in the morning after visiting the gambling ship, and there was still some time before lunch. Li Qing planned to take people to the casino to have a look. After all, it has been a long time, and he must see it with his own eyes. The group came to the largest casino under New World, Sands Casino. As soon as they entered the door of the casino, they saw the casino manager coming with an ugly face. Mr. Li, Mr. He. Li Qing raised his eyebrows. He knew this manager, and he was not so impetuous under normal circumstances. What's wrong? So anxious? He Min asked unhappily. This made her feel very embarrassed in front of her man. After all, the casino has always been managed by her. Boss He, this is so weird. 2 people and a fool won 10 million in our casino. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 174. Li Qing's eyes narrowed when he heard this. This plot seemed a bit familiar. How is that possible? He Min didn't believe what the manager said at all. The manager said nonchalantly, it's true. When everyone heard that the matter was bizarre, they were very interested. Take me to see it. Li Qing said in a deep voice. At this time, the manager breathed a sigh of relief and quickly led Li Qing, He Min, and others to the gaming table. Mr. Li, those are the 3 people. The manager whispered. Li Qing looked up and saw a man in a suit with a slicked back hair sitting in front. The 2 people behind him looked like gangsters, but one of them was quite handsome. Haha, it takes no effort at all. Li Qing raised the corner of his mouth. This man looked a bit like Xiao Ma, and Li Qing had already recognized him, Gao Jin, the god of gambling. The 2 people behind him were naturally Chen Xiaodao and his younger brother. The 3 of them had stacks of chips in front of them, and it looked like they had won a lot of money, as the manager said. As soon as Li Qing and his men approached, they heard Gao Jin's voice. I want this brand of chocolate. Although he was dressed maturely, Gao Jin spoke like a 10-year-old child, coquettishly looking at Chen Xiaodao beside him. Chen Xiaodao was a little impatient and said perfunctorily, okay, if we win this one, we will buy it. As expected, Gao Jin's attention was focused on the gambling table again, his face completely lost the childish look before, and he opened the last card with a serious expression. I won against K. The dealer opposite had a pale face. The company had already lost more than 10 million in his hands. Okay, I want to eat chocolate. Gao Jin returned to his childlike tone. Everyone behind Li Qing looked surprised. Winning once might be due to luck, but winning several times was not luck. Sound, is it so magical? Crow stepped forward, picked up the playing cards and checked them carefully. There should be nothing wrong with his own playing cards. When Chen Xiaodao saw Li Qing and others, he felt a little guilty. I used to go to small casinos in Xiangjiang. This is my first time at Hejiang Casino. I'm afraid it won't be easy to leave if I win too much. Haha, you guys play slowly, we're leaving first. Are you making soup at home? Sorry. Chen Xiaodao stood up and immediately pulled Gao Jin to leave. I won, where is my chocolate? Gao Jin struggled and continued to ask for chocolate. In his world, chocolate is more attractive than 10 million. Chen Xiaodao looked at the big man who had slowly gathered around, a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. What? The Sands Casino can't afford to lose. Are the people who won the money not allowed to leave? He shouted. It instantly attracted a large number of gamblers to watch the excitement. Sir, don't leave in a hurry. I'll let someone play with you. If you win, your bet will be doubled. Li Qing sat on the chair and looked across at Chen Xiaodao. Chen Xiaodao glanced at Li Qing and understood that the person in front of him might be the owner of the Sands Casino. He also knew that if he didn't gamble, he would definitely not be able to get out of the store. Okay, sir, this is what you said. I believe that a boss as big as you will not be dishonest. Chen Xiaodao comforted Gao Jin and asked him to take a gamble. Li Qing chuckled, Crow, you take a gamble with him. Hearing this, Wu Wu didn't hesitate, rubbed his hands excitedly, and sat opposite Gao Jin. Gao Jin, who was at the gambling table, calmed down under Chen Xiaodao's efforts and stared at the crow opposite him. Pa Gao Jin slapped the table, Hey, who is coming? Do you dare to leave your name? The crow was startled and looked blankly at the fool opposite him. Then he lowered his head and thought for a moment, and replied hesitantly. Chang Shan, Zhao Zilong. He Min burst out laughing. Zhang Dongzhou also grinned, was he really convinced? There were two fools sitting on the gambling table. Okay, let's get started. Li Qing gave Crow a shudder. The dealer starts to deal the cards. 5 minutes later, the crow looked at each other's 3 J's and opened his mouth in surprise. The fool on the other side was so powerful that even the Qianshu master specially invited by He Min couldn't figure out any clues. Awesome, awesome. He is worthy of being the god of gamblers, Gao Jin. Li Qing stood up, clapped his hands and smiled. When a group of people heard what he said, their eyes widened with disbelief. The big fool opposite him turned out to be the legendary god of gamblers Gao Jin. Chen Xiaodao's heart skipped a beat, the other party actually knew that this fool was the god of gamblers. He originally wanted to come to Hejiang to make a little fortune, but he was recognized by someone, and now things got serious. Gao Jin didn't seem to hear, he just pulled Chen Xiaodao's sleeve and asked for chocolate. It seems that the god of gamblers has not recovered his memory yet. Li Qing's eyes flashed and he thought. Now, if you don't want to pay, just say so. There is no gambling god Gao Jin here. Chen Xiaodao swallowed and pretended to be calm. Li Qing glanced at him, and his subordinates slowly gathered around him. It's a lot of money, but I want to talk to you alone. A group of people went up and grabbed Chen Xiaodao and the other 3, and took them directly to a reception room. Li Qing also took He Min and walked over slowly. Brother Qing, is he Gao Jin, the god of gambling? He Min asked curiously. The name of god of gambling Gao Jin is not only famous in East and Southeast Asia, but is also said to be very popular in Las Vegas in the United States. If Gao Jin were in charge of gambling, it would be like a heifer making a rocket, and he would be so awesome. But looking at his stupid look now, I wonder if he still has this ability. Li Qing nodded, he is the legendary gambling god Gao Jin, but judging from his current appearance, something might have happened. Of course he knew that Gao Jin had temporary amnesia now. As long as he had surgery to remove the blood clots in his head, his memory would naturally recover. When they arrived at the reception room, Chen Xiaodao and others were pressed on the sofa. "Boss, at worst, we don't want the money, just let us go." Chen Xiaodao just saw the people who pushed him, all with guns on their waists. This group of people was very difficult to mess with. He planned to keep things quiet. After all, you have to live to spend the money you make. Li Qing smiled at him and threw a cigarette over. "Tell me, why is Gao Jin here with you?" Chen Xiaodao was flattered and took the cigarette. It seemed that this boss had a good temper. "This is my cousin, he broke his head when he was young." Li Qing looked at Chen Xiaodao's nonsense opposite him, and his face gradually turned cold. Pretending to be confused. "Dongziu." Chen Xiaodao looked at the burly man behind Li Qing and walked over slowly. The arms were even thicker than his thighs, and his hands were like a palm leaf fan. One slap could probably break a person's bones. "Yes, he is Gao Jin." Chen Xiaodao was very sincere, without any jokes, and answered very straightforwardly. He told Li Qing and others about Gao Jin's head injury and amnesia from beginning to end. The incident was very bizarre, just like a movie. But everyone had to believe it because Gao Jin was sitting here. In addition to the operation at the gambling table just now, everyone was more convinced that he was the gambling god Gao Jin. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 175. Sir, I have said everything I need to say, can you go home? Grandma is waiting for us to eat. Chen Xiaodao smiled flatteringly. He didn't know if the other side could let them go. "You and your little brother can leave, but he has to stay." Li Qing lit up half of the cigarette in his hand and asked Gao Jin for chocolate. As long as Gao Jin regains his memory, he will have a master in his gambling boat. He is not afraid of gambling masters from all over the world. "No, he came with us." At this time, Brother Chen Xiaodao stood up and whispered. "I don't want the money, just let me take him back." Chen Xiaodao prayed. Crow stepped forward and patted Brother Chen Xiaodao on the head. You are so brave. What's your name? Do you have the right to speak?" Brother Chen Xiaodao shrank his head. "Don't fight, brother, my name is Crow." Crow, who was about to continue patting his head, was stunned. When he heard this person's name, his face suddenly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. "I'm sorry, please change my name immediately. You don't deserve this name." The crow slapped him to death again, making little brother Chen Xiaodao scream. Change, I'll change it right away. I'm not called Crow anymore, I'm called Bird Crow." There are even more than me. "Do you want to go to heaven?" "Caterpillar, my name will be Caterpillar from now on." "Don't hit me, big brother." Li Qing stared at Chen Xiaodao opposite. "I will give you the money you win, and he will keep it." Chen Xiaodao had a hesitant look on his face. 20 million, he would never earn that much in his entire life. He turned around and looked at Gao Jin, who was eating chocolate, his eyes full of complexity. "Don't worry, we will help Gao Jin recover his memory." Chen Xiaodao gritted his teeth. "Brother, I only want 10 million, and I will keep the other 10 million for Gao Jin's medical treatment." Li Qing looked incomprehensible, took a deep look at Chen Xiaodao, and nodded. It seems that this Chen Xiaodao is a person with a bottom line. He waved his hand, and Zhang Dongzhi placed a black suitcase in front of Chen Xiaodao. "I'm willing to admit defeat. I say 20 million, every penny is a lot." Chen Xiaodao looked at the suitcase full of 20 million Hong Kong dollars and was a little excited. He had never seen so much money. "With this money, I will not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of my life." See a visitor out. Li Qing said softly. Amidst the pushing and shoving of the younger brothers, Chen Xiaodao and Caterpillar walked out of the casino. Li Qing stood upstairs watching the two people leave. Dongziu, contact the famous Yangjiang brain doctor to come to Hejiang for consultation. As long as Gao Jin's memory is restored, even Dongfeng will be available. Zhang Dongziu nodded and walked away. Chen Xiaodao was sitting on the boat, holding a box of money in his arms, but there was no joy as expected on his face. Brother, did we do something wrong? The caterpillar scratched his face, feeling as if he had sold Gao Jin. When Chen Xiaodao heard this, he pursed his lips tightly, feeling an indescribable feeling of guilt in his heart. It's hard to explain when my mother-in-law asks, Caterpillar said in a low voice. Explain to whom? Who should I answer to when I came out to fool around? The younger brother, Caterpillar, shrank his shoulders in fear, lowered his head and said nothing. Chen Xiaodao kept comforting himself in his heart. The boss said he would definitely cure him. It would be better for him to be there than to follow me. Maybe, the memory will be restored after a while. His mind was confused and he was thinking about Gao Jin's things along the way. It wasn't until he arrived at the main room that he came back to his senses and let out a breath. Mother-in-law, I'm back. Chen Xiaodao opened the door and walked into the room with a forced smile. The strange thing is that my mother-in-law is not at home, maybe she went to a neighbor's house to play mahjong. Don't move. Chen Xiaodao felt the cold barrel of the gun pressing against the back of his head. The visitor slowly walked up to him. He was a middle-aged man wearing a black suit. I'm Long Wu, where did you do Gao Jin? Ryago is a friend of Japan's Yamaguchi Gumikami Yamahiroshi. He came here specifically to protect Gao Jin and his skills are very impressive. He has been looking for Gao Jin since he disappeared. Until recently, he found out that Gao Jin was with Chen Xiaodao. Mr. Long Wu, please put down the gun first, and we can talk if we have anything to say. Chen Xiaodao's Adam's apple twitched and he gently pulled the gun out of Long Wu's hand. Long Wu glared at Chen Xiaodao and put down his gun. Gao Jin is not here with me, Chen Xiaodao breathed out lightly. Where is Mr. Gao Jin now? The time for his gambling appointment with Singapore gambling king Chen Jinqing was coming soon, and he was a little anxious. At the Sands Casino. When Long Wu heard this, he had no reaction. He has been in Japan and is not very familiar with the casinos in Xiangjiang and Hejiang. However, Mr. Gao Jin was kidnapped and he must be rescued. You and I come together and we rescue Mr. Gao. His friend asked him to protect Gao Jin and make sure nothing goes wrong. These two people were so brave that they dared to save people without even asking. At night, the two took the last boat trip to Hejiang. Little did they know that a group of people were secretly following behind them. At this time, on the third floor of the Sands Casino, several famous brain doctors from Hong Kong were consulting, holding the CT scan that Gao Jin took in the hospital today for study. Some doctors were examining Gao Jin's body and shining a flashlight into his pupils. Mr. Li, Mr. Gao's brain was indeed hit, and the blood clots inside compressed the nerves, causing amnesia. A leading doctor whispered in Li Qing's ear. Are you 100% sure about the operation? A group of doctors looked grim. After all, it was the brain, and no one could be 100% sure. Li Qing looked at the doctors. I hope you will go all out. This person is very important to me. If the operation is successful, you will all get money. If it fails. He left the words unfinished, letting them think about it. Li Qing took Gao Jin out of the room, and a group of doctors were stunned on the spot. The leading doctor said, Did you hear what Mr. Li said? If it succeeds, there will be a lot of money. If it fails, wait for a career change. Li Qing stuffed a few pieces of chocolate into Gao Jin's hand, and Gao Jin thanked him happily. Dongziu, take good care of Mr. Gao. Zhang Dongziu nodded. Mr. Gao, please follow me. Gao Jin also waved happily at Li Cheng. Li Cheng smiled and turned to get in the car. I'll ask Xiao Ma some other day. It's hard to guarantee that the two are not relatives. This Gao Jin has been active in the United States and has never come to Hong Kong like this. Long Wu and Chen Xiaodao were not far from the Sands Casino, carefully watching the movements here with binoculars. Zhang Dongzhou took Gao Jin out of the casino and was about to leave in the car. Good opportunity. Long Wu took out a gun from his arms and rushed over, and Chen Xiaodao didn't have time to stop him. Zhang Dongzhou opened the car door and let Gao Jin get in. He came to the driver's seat and saw a man coming from a distance, with his right hand hidden behind his back. This made him alert and slowly pulled out the pistol from his waist. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 176. Stop, what are you doing? Zhang Dongzhou shouted loudly. Long Wu didn't say anything, but walked quickly towards the side. He saw that Zhang Dongzhou was alone and felt that this was a perfect opportunity to rescue Gao Jin. His right hand suddenly raised and shot at Zhang Dongzhou. Zhang Dongzhou's pupils shrank. Mr. Gao, lower your head. Pa! A gunshot rang out, and bullets hit the car body, leaving several bullet holes. The doorman at the door of Sands Casino saw it and quickly ran into the casino to report. Not to be outdone, Zhang Dongzhou stood up and fired at Long Wu while the opponent was changing bullets. But they all hit the bunker where Long Wu was hiding. What's the matter with such a loud gunshot and the crows haven't come out yet? He cursed Crow severely in his heart. Gao Jin was so frightened that he ran out of the car. Not far away, Gao Yi took some boys he borrowed from Anan and hid behind the car. Just when he saw Gao Jin running out, his eyes lit up. Go up, kill Gao Jin. This group of boys chased Gao Jin with guns in hand. Gao Jin only felt the sound of gunshots coming from all over him. With an IQ of only 10 years old, he covered his head and ran forward. Bang! A car couldn't dodge and knocked him away. His head hit the ground hard and he fainted. Long Wu felt the sound of gunshots coming from behind him and quickly looked back. More than a dozen people rushed over with guns. He quickly ran behind a truck. Zhang Dongzhou still remembered his boss's instructions and took the risk to bring Gao Jin back. Snort. He groaned and glanced at the bloody hole on his calf. I was bitten. At this time, Crow rushed out with a shotgun and a group of boys. He just sprayed at the incoming person, and the younger brothers behind him also found cover and shot at the incoming person. Crow took the time to glance at Zhang Dongzhou and saw the bullet hole in his calf. Blood was already flowing down his pants. His eyes instantly turned red. The two of them usually fight each other, but their relationship for such a long time is very deep. I'm going to Liang, so you can beat me, Xiu'er. Kill them all, and no one can escape. The younger brothers watched Brother Crow rushing over with a gun in hand. Their morale greatly increased, and they began to use powerful firepower to suppress the opponent. These people were indeed trained by AO, and all of them were very good at shooting. The number of people on Gao Yi's side decreased one by one, and he was a little flustered. This was completely different from what he planned. He didn't know why so many people showed up on the other side. He just secretly followed Long Wu and others, preparing to kill Gao Jin. I didn't expect to provoke other forces. Go, go. Gao Yi looked at the crow getting closer and closer, feeling anxious, and quickly ran towards the beach not far away. The others watched him run away. Naturally, no one tried their best and they all fled. Crow was about to catch up, but was stopped by Zhang Dongzhou in the distance. It turned out that Long Wu sneaked over secretly and fired a cold shot at Zhang Dongzhou. Crow, you're so funny, come back quickly. After all, the task assigned by the boss is the most important, and nothing happens to Gao Jin. When Crow heard this, he bared his teeth and said, "Shiuer, is this how you thank your savior?" With a wink at the younger brother nodded and secretly moved towards Longwu's direction. Chen Xiaodao felt anxious when he saw Longwu being trapped. He didn't have a gun and didn't know what to do for a while. Longwu also realized that he might not be able to run away because the magazine was empty, so he stood up naked. The younger brothers stepped forward and pinned him down with a beautiful hug. "Call Bai Che, hurry up!" Crow shouted to his younger brother. "How about it, Dongxiu, you can't die, right?" Crow squatted down and checked Zhang Dongxiu's injuries. "Oh, tisk, tisk, it looks like you need to rest for a while." The crow bared its big teeth, thinking that it would be the only one favored during this period of time. "You're such a crow, can't you say something auspicious?" Zhang Dongxiu rolled his eyes. Seeing that Zhang Dongxiu was so angry, he knew that his life was definitely not in danger, and Wu Wu felt relieved. He stood up, took out his pistol, and turned on the safety. Click, the bullet was loaded and he walked towards Longwu's direction. I don't know where this shit came from, but he dared to cause trouble in front of the casino owned by New World. The younger brother had already tied up Longwu and made him kneel on the ground. "You are so brave. You dare to come here to cause trouble. Don't come here again in the next life." The gun was placed directly on Longwu's forehead, with his index finger on the trigger. "Don't shoot, don't shoot." At this time, Chen Xiaodao ran over, and Crow squinted at the person. "You kid is unethical. All the money has been given to you, and yet you still bring people to cause trouble." Crow looked at Chen Xiaodao and said angrily. Although he is a crow and disdainful of Guangong, he still pays attention to getting things done with money. Besides, since joining the boss, he has never been hungry. Who in the whole new world doesn't know Brother Crow is good now? When I have nothing to do, I take them to shoot a small movie, which makes others envious for a while. Chen Xiaodao realized his mistake and smiled sheepishly. "I will return the money to you." This was also the result of his careful consideration, and his conscience couldn't bear it. "Crow, come quickly." Zhang Dongxiu felt anxious when she saw Gao Jin unconscious. Wu Wu glared at Chen Xiaodao and said, "Keep an eye on them and wait for the boss to come." The boys nodded. The crow also looked at Gao Jin worriedly. "The white car will be here soon. I have already contacted my brother." Half an hour later, Li Qing stood in front of Zhang Dongxiu's bed. Gao Jin was unconscious in the ward next to him. Li Qing shook his head. The inertia of history is really big. In the movie of the previous life, Gao Jin also recovered his memory after being hit by a car. It seems that this time is the same. He looked at Zhang Dongxiu again. His young lawyer girlfriend was taking care of him carefully beside him. The crow beside him had envy in his eyes. A playboy also wanted to have a family. "Dongxiu, I will give you a long vacation during this period. You should rest more," Li Qing said with a smile. Dongxiu followed him every day during this period and didn't see the young lawyer many times. It was just right to let him rest while he was injured. Zhang Dongxiu was about to speak, but was stopped by Li Qing waving his hand. "Okay, I'll listen to Big Brother." He turned to Crow and said, "Remember to remind Big Brother to take medicine every day. I bought a few more boxes and put them in the drawer. Remember to refill Big Brother's cigarettes and always carry a lighter." Crow was very upset. Damn, this bastard is trying to be nice to Big Brother again. "Do you need to tell me?" Li Qing went to the ward next door to see Gao Jin. "Yeah." Gao Jin sat up with his head covered. He felt like he had been dreaming for a long time, and this dream was extremely real. "Gao Jin, are you awake?" Li Qing asked softly. Gao Jin looked up at the person in front of him and thought for a moment. "Are you the casino owner?" Sure enough, his memory was restored and he remembered everything he had experienced. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 177. Li Qing looked at Gao Jin with a smile. My name is Li Qing. When Gao Jin heard Li Qing's name, his pupils shrank sharply. He heard from gambling kings in Las Vegas that the gambling industry in Hejiang was reshuffled last year. One of them, a young man named Li Qing, became the head of Hejiang's gambling industry and shared an equal share with King He Gambling. Moreover, this person has a very high status in the world of Xiangjiang and Hejiang. Looking up and down at the young leader of the club, Gao Jin felt a little guilty. After all, the person's shadow tree is named, so it seems that the person in front of him is really capable. Mr. Li, I have admired you for a long time. I have heard of your name in the Chinese community in the United States. Gao Jin cupped his fists and smiled. Oh. Li Qing raised his eyebrows. It seems that the Chinese forces in the United States are also paying attention to the domestic situation. Mr. Gao, what are your plans this time? Li Qing asked tactfully. The gambling boat is about to open, and it urgently needs the gambling god to join, but I don't know if I can take him under its wing. After all, he was facing more than just a crook. Ever since the gambling boat opened, gambling kings in East and Southeast Asia were paying attention. He didn't want to be picked apart. Mr. Li, I know what you mean, can you let me think about it? If you still have trouble, please let me know that my girlfriend is safe. Gao Jin thought about it and felt that this matter needed to be considered carefully. This time I really owe Li Qing a great debt of gratitude, and it would be no exaggeration to say that I owe him a life-saving favor. He still remembered that in addition to Long Wu rescuing him, there was also a group of people who were chasing him yesterday. He can also guess the specific person. It was nothing more than the work of Singaporean gambling king Tan Jinqing. This old man knew that he was bound to lose, so he used this assassination method. After hearing this, Li Qing nodded and signaled Wu Wu to contact Gao Jin's wife. It took so long that he also forgot whether Gao Jin's wife was pregnant or not. After a while, Crow walked in with a gloomy expression and muttered something in Li Qing's ear. Huh? Missing. Disappeared 3 days ago. In other words, before Li Qing met Gao Jin, his wife was Gigi. Li Qing shook his head, God's will cannot be violated. Gao Jin, I have some bad news for you. Your wife has disappeared. When Gao Jin heard this, he suddenly raised his head with an expression of disbelief. Missing? Impossible, how could it be possible? Call Gao Yi will definitely know. Gao Jin was very excited and struggled to stand up, but the injury on his head made him dizzy. Gao Jin, don't worry. I will help you investigate. The most important thing for you now is to rest. Li Qing waved his hand, and the doctor stepped forward and started injecting Gao Jin with a sedative. Gao Jin also wanted to ask about the situation of Long Wu and Chen Xiaodao, but he was so sleepy that he couldn't open his eyes. This is a treasure. If I get excited and lose my memory again, it won't be troublesome. After watching Gao Jin sleep, Li Qing led people out of the ward. Crow, ask Qian Dan to check on Gao Jin's wife. I suspect she is dead. Li Qing rubbed the stubble on his chin and said after thinking for a moment. Now Gao Jin's wife is dead. The key is to find those unburned tapes. Crow nodded and hurried down to contact Zhang Qiandan. Anan's villa. Gao Yi was being beaten violently by Anan's younger brother. Damn it, mother, this Yakuza has done so much harm to me, yet he still dares to come see me. Anan pointed at Gao Yi and said. I borrowed people to help this little brat do some work, but as a result he lost several brothers, and the people who came back were all injured. This little brat actually fired a gun at the gate of a casino. It was so daring. Now he has received word that this casino is owned by his mother's new world. Anan wanted to kill him. Brother Nan, you heard about me, I really have a way to make money. Gao Yi also knew that this incident caused Anan serious losses, so he had no choice but to sacrifice greater benefits. Anan didn't believe Gao Yi at all, so he stepped forward and slapped him. Where's the $2 million you promised me? He checked that the 2 million promised by Gao Yi had not yet arrived, and this little bastard wanted to lie to him again. I will definitely give you $2 million, but I have to settle Gao Jin first. Gao Yi spread his hands and looked embarrassed. When Anan heard this, he was furious. You are by his side all day long, and you are looking for me. I don't want him to die so soon now. Trick me. Anan grabbed him by the collar and was about to punch him. Anan. The familiar voice made Anan stop. Chen Jinqing walked in with several bodyguards. Don't do anything yet. He walked to the coffee table and sat on the sofa, lighting Gao Jin with the cigar in his hand. Tell me your reasons first. Gao Yi pushed Anan's hand away, straightened his clothes and walked to Chen Jinqing. He stretched out his thumb and said with a charming smile, Mr. Chen, you are still very good. You know what I mean when you hear it? Gamblers all over Southeast Asia are waiting to see the bet between you and Gao Jin. The odds between Gao Jin and you are 3-1. Chen Jinqing's face twitched. This was because most people were optimistic about Gao Jin. He said a little impatiently, okay, don't talk about these useless nonsense. I have a way to let you win, and then persuade you to invest money. Don't we want to make a lot of money? It turned out that Gao Yi wanted to use American chemicals and special glasses to cheat and let Chen Jinqing win Gao Jin. Anan stood up, that won't work. Such a big bet must be checked. Gao Yi glanced at Anan and sneered, Brother Nan, who checks the cards on your side? Of course it's me. Yes, I also check the cards on Gao Jin's side. If we don't say it, who can see it? God of gamblers, do you really think he is a god? Gao Yi said proudly. The three of them raised their glasses and smiled at each other, as if they had already won. Zhang Qiandan was very efficient and sent people directly to Gao Jin's villa to find clues. In addition to finding bloodstains on the lawn, an unburned tape was also found on the floor of the bedroom. A special person was specially asked to repair it. Li Qing looked at the tape in his hand and handed it to Crow. Play it. Crow put the tape into the recorder and turned on the play button. It's been the 11th day, and Jin hasn't come back yet. If there's no news tomorrow, I'll call the police. The voice of Gao Jin's girlfriend Janet rang out on the recorder. Actually, I doubt I's loyalty. He's been acting so strange these days, snored. The tape went blank for a long time, and it seemed that the next part had been burned. Get out, how am I inferior to Jin? Ah, are you doing this to Jin? Even if he doesn't die, I'll kill him, and the $15 million he has in a Swiss bank, ah. Sound of glass breaking, dot. Crow's eyes lit up when he heard it. Oh my god, so exciting. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 178. Longwu and Chen Xiaodao were tied up in the basement of the casino. They were both in a state of embarrassment, with their heads lowered and silent. You are so brave, why didn't you rescue Gao Jin? Chen Xiaodao glanced at Longwu next to him. In his mind, Longwu was simply a reckless man. With so many people in San's casino, he dared to go alone. Longwu raised his head and glared at him, his hands kept moving, and he was about to quietly untie the rope. Chen Xiaodao watched Longwu's movements and secretly cheered for him. Hurry, before the other party comes. Although he didn't know what the other party would do with them, the outcome would definitely not be good. Bah! The basement door was opened. The two looked at each other and looked in the direction of the door. Li Qing walked in with Wu Wu and looked at the two people squatting in the corner. Chen Xiaodao, you are not polite. You took my money. I didn't expect to turn around and bring someone to rob Gao Jin. Li Qing stared at Chen Xiaodao expressionlessly, and the depressive atmosphere in the room began to spread. Chen Xiaodao looked a little ugly and said with a flattering smile, "Boss, this is my fault. We are also worried about Gao Jin's safety." Long Wu looked at Li Qing and then at Chen Xiaodao. One person does the work and the other takes responsibility. I forced him to do it. Oh, you still do things alone and take responsibility for others. Maid, it was because of you, Dong Xiaoki, that you were injured. How dare you say that? Wu Wu took a baseball bat from his younger brother and refused to let Long Wu suffer. He felt sorry for working with Zhang Dongzhi for so many days. Li Qing didn't stop him, lit a cigarette and watched quietly. At this time, the casino manager squeezed in, "Mr. Li, there is a Japanese named Hiroshi Yayama outside. He wants to see you. It is said that he is from the Yamaguchi-gumi of Japan." When Li Qing heard this, his eyes narrowed. "Crow, we'll play later." He decided to meet him first. As soon as I went upstairs, I saw a short, thin, middle-aged man standing respectfully next to the elevator. "Are you Mr. Li Qing?" "I am Hiroshi Yayama of Japan's Yamaguchi-gumi. I'm really sorry for disturbing you this time." Hiroshi Yayama bowed 90 degrees. Although he has been in Japan, Yamaguchi-gumi is very well informed, and he often hears about famous names in the New World. So when he received the news that Long Wu had been arrested, he rushed over as soon as possible. "Oh? Hiroshi Yayama." The man in front of him was Hiroshi Yayama, who ranked second in Japanese gambling skills. It was because of his entrustment that Gao Jin made an appointment with Singaporean gambling king Chen Jinqing. "I don't seem to have anything to do with the Yamaguchi group. What's the matter with you?" Li Qing pretended to be confused, pretending to understand. "Mr. Li Qing, I'm really sorry. Mr. Long Wu is my good friend." Hiroshi Yayama looked embarrassed. He did go a bit too far this time in front of the Sands Casino. Gritting his teeth, he pulled out the knife in his arms and wanted to cut off his little finger to apologize. Li Qing frowned. This little Japanese was prone to cutting off his fingers and committing seppuku. "Okay, put down the knife. This time I will save face for Yamaguchi. Next time, I will go directly to the crematorium to collect his body." To be honest, the reason why Li Qing let them go was because he was very interested in the Japanese Yamaguchi-gumi. Establishing the New World's stronghold in Japan is also part of his plan. Keeping Hiroshi Yayama and Ryugo will be more or less useful. "Crow, let the man go." Li Qing ordered to the crow behind him. Crow nodded, turned over and walked back to the basement. "Thank you very much, Mr. Li Qing. If you have the opportunity to go to Japan, you must contact me." Hiroshi Yayama bowed 90 degrees and handed over the business card with both hands. Li Qing took the business card and glanced at it. He smiled and said, "I will." "I wonder how Mr. Gao Jin is doing," Shangshan asked carefully. He was very anxious because the appointment time with Chen Jinqing was coming soon. If Gao Jin loses, his wish to avenge his father may be in vain. "It's getting better, don't worry." Crow brought Long Wu up. Long Wu rubbed his wrists, glanced at Hongji Yayama, and nodded. "Excuse me." After Hiroshi Yayama thanked him, he left with Ryugo. "Let's go to the hospital and tell him about Gao Jin's girlfriend." Li Qing and Crow also left the casino and went to the hospital. Hospital, advanced ward. After listening to the recording, Gao Jin burst into tears. He never imagined that he and his girlfriend would be separated forever after not seeing each other for more than 10 days. "Gao Yi, bastard." Gao Jin gritted his teeth, wishing to tear Gao Yi into pieces. This cousin, whom he had never treated badly, ended up killing his girlfriend. "Mr. Li, I promise you to sit on your gambling boat. But I want Gao Yi to die." Gao Jin's eyes were filled with hatred, and now he just wanted to kill Gao Yi. Li Qing nodded, take good care of yourself, my gambling boat will open next week. I will arrange your bet with Chen Jinqing. He wanted to arrange the bet between Gao Jin and Chen Jinqing on his own gambling boat. Firstly, this opportunity can be used to promote the century. Secondly, it can also shock the gambling kings from all over Southeast Asia. Dead people cannot be resurrected. What you have to do now is to recharge your batteries so that you can avenge her. Li Qing patted Gao Jin on the shoulder. Gao Jin nodded, slowly lay down on the hospital bed and closed his eyes. Li Qing and others walked out of the hospital and immediately made arrangements for the opening of the gambling boat next week. Especially, Zhang Sheng and Luo Fu had to be notified. After all, they were also shareholders. With their connections, the century would have to be famous. As for poor Chen Xiaodao, he also voluntarily paid back the money he won from Gao Jin's cheating. He was caught by Crow and made a waiter on the century. Brother Crow, I'm not cut out to be a waiter. Look at how I'm dressed. I look like a weirdo. Chen Xiaodao was wearing a white shirt and a black bow tie, which made him uncomfortable. Also, his younger brother used to be called Crow, but now he calls him Brother Crow, which always feels awkward. Crow looked him up and down, this outfit looks ugly on others, but you look handsome. You're born to be a waiter. Crow's words confused Chen Xiaodao. His dream was to be the king of gambling, but in the end, reality defeated his dream. In fact, he wanted to worship the gambling god Gao Jin as his teacher. Forget it, it's a job after all. Chen Xiaodao thought secretly. A week passed quickly. During this week, famous gambling kings from all over Southeast Asia received invitations from the century. Even wealthy businessmen from all over the world knew about the century and wanted to go on board to play a few games. And they were all proud to receive invitations from the century, which also led to He-Min's constant calls. Congratulations, invitations, and cooperation. Li Qing smiled and glanced at his woman, okay, turn off your phone and take a break. He-Min turned off her phone and rolled her eyes, I've been so busy these days that my lips are irritated. Since her man came back, she felt that the work at the casino was much easier. Especially those who secretly made trouble stopped. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 179. What she didn't know was that Li Qing secretly ordered the killing of several troublemakers, which frightened those who dared to make trouble. Some people would say that the new world is so powerful, why would anyone dare to make trouble? In this world, people are afraid of being poor. Not to mention offending the society, the president can assassinate you. There are many brave people. On Sunday, the weather was clear and cloudless, which was a good day for going out to sea. Today was also the day when the century set sail for the first time. Many people drove luxury cars to the dock. He-Min had already arranged the reception, from parking, boarding, security checks and other links, and every aspect was taken care of. Sometimes Li Qing had to admire her ability. This was probably the background of being born in a wealthy family. Li Qing also stood on the boat to receive the guests. Haha, Boss Li, this gambling boat is really impressive. Luo Fu smoked a cigar and was delighted to see the lively scene on the gambling boat. After all, he also had a share. Zhang Sheng was also full of smiles. Who doesn't like money these days? It seems that he made a fortune from this investment. I dare say that only Boss Li can build such a big gambling ship in the whole of Hong Kong. Zhang Sheng leaned on a cane and complimented. You two are too kind. Although this ship is the largest in Southeast Asia, it is still a little behind the gambling ships in the United States, Canada, and other places. Li Qing smiled modestly. Compared with the casinos in Hejiang, gambling ships are undoubtedly more attractive to big customers. High security, gambling ships are usually opened on the high seas and no one disturbs them. New World's big clubs are guaranteed, and some small casinos in Hejiang have no credibility. They will not let people go after winning money, and will not let people go until they lose all their money. Some people even openly lend money at high interest rates in casinos. New World's casinos have never had similar incidents, and even sent bodyguards to escort you to the airport after winning money. A complete one-stop service, so New World's casinos have a good reputation. On the contrary, the casino owned by Li Qing's father-in-law has been in trouble frequently. God of gamblers Gao Jin is here. Hearing some people exclaim, the three of them looked towards the entrance of the ship at the same time. Looking at Gao Jin, wearing a black suit, walking over. He was followed by his cousin Gao Yi and Kami Yamahiroji. Gao Jin walked over with a chuckle, pretending to have just met him. "Hello, Mr. Li. It is really a great honor for the god of gamblers Mr. Gao Jin to come." Li Qing didn't mind playing along with him. After a few people exchanged greetings, Gao Jin left tactfully. Gao Jin was just about to find a place to sit for a while when he heard someone say hello. "Gao Jin, come over and have a drink, it will take a long time to get to the high seas." Chen Jinqing and Anan were sitting on chairs, and there were a few glasses of red wine on the table. Gao Jin looked at Chen Jinqing with contempt. "Sorry, I only drink with friends." The coldness in his voice made Chen Jinqing angry. "What?" Anan stood up when he saw his boss was rejected. Chen Jinqing patted Anan and asked him to sit down. They had attracted the attention of the security personnel on the gambling ship. The people responsible for the security of the gambling ship this time were Ao and his men, as well as the three Jin brothers, Yanbi and F3. At this time, Chen Xiaodao walked to Gao Jin with a wine tray and whispered, "Your cousin Gao Yi wants to kill you." Gao Jin's eyes condensed and he looked at Chen Xiaodao seriously. "I don't care what you want to say, everything will be after the gambling game is over." After that, he left with his men. Chen Xiaodao frowned. It seems that this big fool has recovered his memory. Woo! The whistle sounded, indicating that the Century was setting sail. Li Qing stood on the stage, looked at the guests, and said with a smile, "Welcome to the Century, the new century is coming. The world is constantly changing, and so are we, constantly seeking change. People who stick to the rules will eventually be eliminated by the times, so I joined hands with Mr. Luo and Mr. Zhang to create the century. It is to make everyone have fun and enjoy themselves. Everyone knows that the gambling god Gao Jin and the Singapore gambling king Chen Jinqing's gambling contract will also be held on our ship. We have also opened a handicap here, and those who are interested can participate." Li Qing did not say much, and simply said a few words. The guests on the ship applauded, and then walked towards the gambling hall in twos and threes. Li Qing asked, "What is the handicap between Gao Jin and Chen Jinqing now?" "Brother, 2-2, I just received a large sum of money and bet on the Singapore gambling king to win." He smiled. It seems that the wheel of history is still moving along the established track. By $10 million, Gao Jin wins. More is not enough, after all, the handicap is so big, and you can't make much if you bet too much. Crow's eyes turned, and he asked the staff to buy 1 million Gao Jin to win. He had to drink some soup with his big brother. After about half an hour, the ship had entered the high seas. The gambling game between the two began under the attention of the public. Anan nodded at the dealer. It turned out that he bribed the dealer early in the morning and secretly replaced the cards in the casino with the marked cards. Li Qing also saw it, but just smiled mysteriously. There was actually someone who wanted to bribe his dealer, so he simply let the dealer play along. Anan smiled at Gao Yi, and watched how Gao Jin died this time. The dealer opened a new poker and spread it flat on the gambling table, All in one go. The gambling masters from all over the country who were observing nodded. It seems that the staff on the New World casino ship are not bad. Please check the cards, both parties. Gao Yi and Anan stood up, pretending to pick up the special glasses on the waiter's plate and looked at them. He kept groping for the poker cards in the middle, looking very serious. A few minutes later, Gao Yi nodded to Gao Jin, indicating that the poker cards were fine. Anan on the other side also said to Chen Jinqing, "No problem. Okay, both parties have checked the cards, and we can start." Gao Jin smiled at Chen Jinqing on the opposite side. Chen Jinqing was not to be outdone, smoking a cigar and looking like he was sure of winning. The dealer began to deal the cards. Chen Jinqing looked at his own cards, and then looked at Gao Jin's cards. 20,000. Follow. Gao Jin didn't even look at them. The dealer dealt the cards again. 50,000. Gao Jin still didn't look at the cards, and shouted directly. Chen Jinqing looked at the cards in his hand, and through the special glasses, he looked at Gao Jin's cards. "No. Mr. Chen, you are so careful," Gao Jin joked. Some gambling kings beside him also felt strange. Gao Jin didn't look at the bottom cards at all. Now the two cards revealed were all Chen Jinqing's. "Gambling King Chen, why don't you follow? I wonder too." Now the cards are obviously bigger for him. Maybe he has his own ideas. Chen Jinqing ignored the rumors around him. Damn, he knew that the other party's bottom cards were bigger than his. Only a fool would follow. Haha, I will only be 70 next year. I still need to save some money for my birthday party. Chen Jinqing said happily. The dealer began to deal the cards again. From this round, the atmosphere became more and more tense. Only by the fourth card was dealt, the bet had reached $2 million. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 180. Most of the gamblers present were experts in gambling, but none of them had any clues. What surprised them was that the god of gamblers Gao Jin and the Singapore gambling king were both trying to make each other bankrupt. Just 4 tickets had already raised $2 million. When the fifth card was dealt, Gao Jin said with a smile, "There is no reason not to use such a good card, 5 million. Chen Jinqing was stunned for a moment, looked at his own cards, and then at the whole card that Gao Jin was holding. Through his glasses, he already knew that Gao Jin's whole card was a K. Humph, a pair of Ks want to steal my cock. He showed his trump card, "I'm a preserved man with 7 pairs, there's no reason not to follow. Let's take a look at the 5 million cards." The smile on Gao Jin's face froze for an instant, and then he smiled again and put down the cards in his hand. "You seem to have seen through my cards. Young man, you are not sophisticated enough." Chen Jinqing smiled proudly, and Anan next to him also laughed at Gao Jin opposite. "Hey, the god of gamblers is anxious. You're still too young. The experience of a gambling king is here. Fortunately, I bet on the betting king. It's not even the last round yet, maybe. There is only 1 box of money left in the god of gamblers' place. It will be difficult to make a comeback." All the gamblers started talking about it. Li Qing was also smoking, sitting nearby and smiling at the scene. It seems that Gao Jin wants to fish. At the beginning of a new round, the cards of both sides are not small. There are a pair of aces and a pair of queens respectively. 2 million. And Chen Jinqing still looked like an old god. The dealer continued to deal the cards, and Gao Jin looked at the cards. 4 million. Chen Jinqing looked at the money on the table and pointed at it. "Mr. Gao, it seems you don't have enough money." Gao Jin smiled and took out an envelope from his arms. "This is a Swiss bank check worth $30 million. Li Qing looked at the familiar envelope and smiled. This was the 5-year salary he had advanced to Gao Jin. The fifth card continued, and Chen Jinjing looked at the cue in his hand. I seem to be lucky tonight, 3 queens. Chen Jinjing looked at Gao Jin opposite. Gao Jin looked at the fifth card with a smile. You are not the only one who is lucky. Chen Jinjing's smile froze and the cigar in his hand paused. Opposite Gao Jin, he was not bad luck and got 3 aces. Anan glanced at Gao Yi, who nodded imperceptibly. Brother Jin, if you win this one, you'll get it all back, Gao Yi asked tentatively. Gao Jin glanced at Gao Yi and said, don't worry, let's take a look first. He gently removed the ace covering the whole card. At the same time, Chen Jinjing saw through his glasses that Gao Jin's whole card turned out to be K. The trump card turned out to be the old king. Gao Jin looked at the whole cards and said with a smile, 3 aces versus 3 queens, I haven't encountered such cards for a long time. Don't waste time, 26 million show. Everyone around was shocked by Gao Jin's words. Even people like Zhang Sheng and Luo Fu were surprised by Gao Jin's courage. You must know that this is 26 million US dollars. Chen Jinjing crossed his arms and said with a smile, 26 million, Gao Jin, you are ruthless enough. Haha, young people are young people, they are too impulsive. Chen Jinjing's steady appearance made everyone think that he would win. This makes gamblers who buy high and win feel heartbroken. Okay, I'll give you 26 million, and I'll have 4 queens. Let's see how big you are on me. Gao Jin leaned slumped on the back of his chair. Now almost everyone thought he had lost. It's amazing. The king of gambling is the king of gambling. You got all 4 queens. Then the conversation changed, but you are still in bad luck. You lost. After saying that, he turned up his trump card, 4 aces. Everyone looked at the cards on the table in disbelief. Chen Jinjing stood up excitedly and looked at the cards on the gambling table, then took off his eyes and looked at Anan next to him. Only then did he realize that he might have been deceived. The two of them looked at Gao Yi across from him at the same time, about to stand up and question him. Gao Jin stood up happily and hugged Gao Yi. Thank you, cousin, if I hadn't been an old fox like you, I wouldn't have been fooled. Li Qing stood up and applauded. Chen Jinjing, I really admire you for daring to cheat on my gambling boat. You don't know how to write the word death. At this time, Chen Jinjing and Anan's faces were pale. Mr. Li, you heard about me. Crow stepped forward and pulled Chen Jinjing's eyes. Tell me about your mother's head. Then he shot Anan in the head. Look, everyone, he used these glasses to cheat. All the gamblers looked at the cards on the table with their glasses and looked at Chen Jinjing with disdain. Mad, you have never beaten the god of gamblers even though you are a cheater. Your grandson is really rubbish. The gambler who lost money cursed rudely. As long as you don't get caught cheating in a casino, the banker will always consider himself unlucky. If you were caught red-handed by the dealer, haha, that would be embarrassing. Don't even think about leaving without leaving a few fingers behind. If the amount involved is huge, your life will remain on the gambling table. Li Qing chuckled and took out a gun and threw it on the gaming table. Chen Jinjing, do you want to go to jail yourself? Or be thrown into the sea now? Make your own decision. Chen Jinjing's mind was spinning, and without any hesitation, he picked up the gun and shot at Gao Yi opposite him. He knew what Li Qing meant. It was nothing more than letting him go to jail for killing someone, which was better than sinking into the sea now. Before Gao Yi could react, he was hit in the heart and collapsed. Li Qing didn't want to kill Chen Jinjing on the gambling boat. After all, he was a well-known figure. If he disappeared on his gambling boat, it would inevitably arouse suspicion and affect the reputation of the gambling boat. Crow took a handkerchief and gently put the gun in Chen Jinjing's hand into a cowhide bag, waiting to hand it over to the Hong Kong police. Okay, let's continue playing. I guarantee with my personality that there will never be such a situation, unless someone cheats. Li Qing said loudly. The younger brothers immediately cleaned up the ground and carried Gao Yi's body out. Seeing Gao Yi put into the body bag, all the masters of cheating felt trembling in their hearts. It seemed that it was impossible to get the wool from the century. In comparison, the wealthy businessmen from all over the country felt very safe. There were security personnel with live ammunition everywhere, and there would be no harassment from any unscrupulous people. You know, they were gambling in a small casino in Hejiang. When others saw that they were outsiders, they would be harassed by local gamblers to a certain extent. The gamblers dispersed in twos and threes and began to look for entertainment activities they were interested in downstairs. Li Qing also hugged Gao Jin and leaned on the railing to watch the hot scene downstairs. It's a pity that I didn't kill him myself. Gao Jin shook his head regretfully. Li Qing handed him a piece of chocolate. You can't kill people, especially in front of so many gambling kings. Li Qing didn't want him to have a criminal record. This gambling ship would not only be in the Pacific region. He wanted to drive the ship to Europe, North America, and the Middle East. This is an absolute cash cow.